For 300 years, no ship had returned from Earth. Across the Galactic Union, children grew up hearing stories about the lost planet. Some believed humanity destroyed itself in war. Others claimed ancient monsters lived beneath Earth's oceans. But the truth was simple. Every expedition sent there vanished. No wreckage. No survivors. No final messages. Only silence. Because of that, Earth became forbidden territory. Maps marked it with red warning symbols, and even battle fleets avoided its solar system. Entire civilizations feared the name. But Commander Rin Vilas did not believe in ghost stories. Standing inside the command bridge of the exploration cruiser Vanguard, he stared at the blue planet slowly growing larger through the massive observation window. Earth looked peaceful, beautiful even. White clouds curled across enormous oceans, while golden city lights glittered on the dark side of the planet like veins of fire. It didn't look dead, it looked alive. Too alive. Behind Rin, nervous crew members whispered quietly among themselves. "It's impossible," one officer muttered. "A world abandoned for centuries shouldn't still have power." Another swallowed hard. Maybe the humans survived. No species survives isolation that long. Rin stayed silent. Deep down, even he felt uneasy. The closer the Vanguard moved toward Earth, the stranger the readings became. Scanners showed power signals across the entire planet, but no visible ships, satellites, or communication towers existed anywhere in orbit. It was as if Earth itself was somehow alive. "Commander," the ship AI suddenly announced, "we are receiving an incoming transmission." The bridge instantly fell silent. Rin slowly turned. "From where?" The AI paused for half a second. "Earth." Cold tension spread through the room. "Play it." Static crackled through the speakers. At first there was only noise, then a human voice emerged from the distortion. Old, tired, and strangely calm. Warning to all non-human vessels approaching Earth. Several crew members froze immediately. The voice continued. "Earth quarantine remains active. Turn back now." A long silence followed. Then the human spoke again, this time colder than before. "If you land, humanity cannot guarantee your survival." The message ended. Nobody moved. One young technician laughed nervously. "That's what scared the galaxy, some ancient recording." But the laughter died quickly, because a timestamp appeared beside the transmission. Sent 14 seconds ago. The bridge erupted with shocked voices. "That's impossible. There are still humans alive. How are they hiding from orbital scans?" Rin stepped toward the main console. "Full planetary scan. I want every structure, every life form, every signal source identified now." The AI responded immediately. "Scanning Earth." For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then suddenly, every light aboard the Vanguard flickered violently. Warning alarms exploded across the bridge. Red emergency lights flooded the room. Unknown system failure. Weapon network offline. External target lock DATACTD. Crew members panicked instantly. "Commander, our defense systems are shutting down. We're being hacked." But there are no ships nearby. Rin gripped the command rail tightly. "Find the source." The main screen zoomed toward Earth's Pacific Ocean. At first, the dark water looked still. Then it moved. Not waves. Something underneath it. Massive circular shapes slowly rose from beneath the ocean's surface. One after another, gigantic black structures emerged from the depths like ancient sleeping gods awakening after centuries. The entire bridge went silent. Each structure was enormous, larger than cities. Dark metal covered their surfaces, but no engines, weapons, or visible technology could be seen. Yet somehow, every system aboard the Vanguard continued shutting down one by one. Then one of the structures opened. A gigantic glowing blue eye appeared deep beneath the water. Watching them, the crew stared in horror as the eye slowly focused directly on the ship. Suddenly, the AI voice changed. "Not malfunctioning. Hijacked. A human voice now spoke through every speaker aboard the cruiser. "We warned you." Several crew members stepped backward in fear. Then every screen on the bridge turned black. Except one. A single live camera feed appeared. It showed an old human man standing alone in the middle of a ruined city beneath pouring rain. He looked directly into the camera, directly at them, and very slowly. He smiled. Rain poured endlessly from the dark skies above the ruined city. The old human stood completely still in the middle of an empty street, while water dripped from his gray hair and long black coat. Broken skyscrapers surrounded him like giant skeletons, covered in vines and rust. Burned vehicles remained frozen across the roads, as if the world had ended in a single terrible moment. Yet the man looked calm. Too calm. Commander Rin stepped closer to the screen, studying him carefully. The human appeared old, perhaps over 70 by Earth standards, but his eyes felt wrong. They carried a strange heaviness, like someone who had watched centuries pass one painful day at a time. Behind Rin, the bridge crew whispered nervously. "That's impossible. A real human. I thought they were extinct." The old man finally spoke. "My name is Jonathan Reed," he said quietly, "last acting representative of Earth." His voice echoed across the silent bridge. Rin crossed his arms. "If humans are still alive, explain what happened to every ship that entered this system." Jonathan did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked upward toward the dark sky above him, as thunder rolled through the ruined city. "You should leave," he said softly. Rin's expression hardened. "Not until we get answers." For the first time, sadness crossed Jonathan's face. "That's exactly what the others said." Suddenly, one of the technicians gasped. "Commander, I found archived recordings." "Show me." The main screen split into dozens of smaller windows. Old transmissions began playing one after another. Different alien ships. Different centuries. Different captains. Every single one asking Earth for permission to land. And every single transmission ended the same way. Human voices begging them to turn back. Warning them. Then silence. No ship ever transmitted again. A cold feeling settled deep inside Rin's chest. "What happened to them?" he demanded. Jonathan's eyes lowered slightly. "We tried to stop them." Before Rin could respond, a strange sound echoed through the transmission. Screaming. Faint at first, then louder. Human screams. The bridge crew froze. The sound came from somewhere behind Jonathan, deep within the ruined city. Rin narrowed his eyes. What was that? Jonathan slowly turned his head toward the darkness behind him. For the first time, he looked afraid. They woke up. The video feed suddenly distorted with violent static. The image shook as if something massive had struck the ground nearby. Then the crew saw it. Something moved between the ruined skyscrapers behind Jonathan. Huge. Far too huge. Only a shadow was visible for a split second, but it crossed the city impossibly fast, blocking entire buildings from view as it passed. Several officers stumbled backward in fear. What in the stars was that? Jonathan looked back at the camera urgently. "You need to go now." Suddenly, the Vanguard trembled violently. Warning alarms exploded across the bridge again. Multiple objects DETCTD in low orbit. Unknown life SIGNS approaching. Rin turned sharply toward the main screen and felt his blood run cold. Thousands of human bodies floated silently around the ship. Pale skin, torn clothing, motionless faces. The corpses drifted through space without suits or equipment, their dead eyes glowing faint blue in the darkness. One officer whispered shakily, "Those are bodies." Another crew member backed away from the screen in horror. "They're watching us." Every corpse faced the Vanguard perfectly still. Not moving. Not blinking. Just staring. Rin forced himself to speak. "Life sign analysis." The AI answered immediately. "Unknown. What does that mean? I cannot determine whether the entities are living or deceased. Fear spread across the bridge like fire. One nervous soldier raised his weapon instinctively, even though the creatures were outside the ship. Then suddenly, every corpse smiled. Not naturally. Their mouths stretched too wide across their faces, revealing dark, broken teeth. Several crew members screamed. And at the exact same moment, all the floating bodies opened their glowing blue eyes fully. Jonathan's terrified voice echoed through the speakers one final time. "Don't let them inside." The transmission cut out. Instantly, the dead humans began moving. Not floating. Flying. Thousands of corpses launched toward the Vanguard at terrifying speed, smashing against the hull like a living storm. The entire ship shook violently. Metal groaned. Glass cracked. Then a new sound echoed through the ventilation system. Soft whispering. Human voices. "Help us." One maintenance hatch warning suddenly flashed red on the bridge. Something was already inside the ship. Red emergency lights flashed violently across the corridors of the Vanguard as alarms screamed through every deck. Breach DATSATD. Unauthorized entry. Lockdown failure. Commander Rin sprinted out of the bridge with armed security teams close behind him. The ship trembled again as more dead human bodies slammed against the outer hull like falling meteors. But the sounds coming through the ventilation system were worse. Whispering, crying, begging, "Please help us. We're cold. Don't leave us alone." The voices sounded human. Real human. One young soldier beside Rin gripped his rifle tighter. "Commander, those things outside, are they actually alive?" Before Rin could answer, the lights suddenly went dark. Complete darkness swallowed the corridor. Then came the scratching. Metal scraping against metal somewhere ahead. Slow. Deliberate. The emergency lights flickered back on. Everyone froze. At the far end of the hallway stood a human corpse. A woman. Her pale skin was cracked and frozen like marble. Long black hair covered half her face, while glowing blue eyes stared directly at the soldiers. She wore an ancient Earth military uniform covered in dried blood. And she was smiling. One nervous guard shouted, "Don't move." The corpse tilted its head slightly. Then it spoke. "Please." Its voice sounded broken, like several people talking at once. "It hurts to be alone." The soldier panicked and opened fire. Pulse rounds exploded through the woman's chest, tearing flesh and bone apart. The corpse slammed backward against the wall, leaving blue blood splattered across the metal corridor. Silence followed. Nobody moved. Then the corpse twitched. Bones cracked loudly. Its shattered ribs slowly pulled back together. The hole in its chest began healing before their eyes. The soldiers stared in horror. "That's impossible." The dead woman slowly stood again. Still smiling. "You left us here," she whispered. Then she attacked. The creature moved impossibly fast. Before anyone reacted, she slammed into the nearest soldier, smashing him against the wall hard enough to crack his armor. Blood sprayed across the corridor as she ripped through the metal chest plate with bare hands. The soldier screamed horribly. Rin fired instantly. Blue energy blasts tore through the creature's head repeatedly until half its skull vanished. But even headless, it kept moving, still clawing at the dying soldier, still twitching, still alive somehow. "Fall back," Rin shouted. The security team retreated down the corridor while firing non-stop behind them. More movement suddenly appeared in nearby hallways. Shapes. Human shapes. Dozens of glowing blue eyes slowly emerged from the darkness. The dead were everywhere inside the ship now. One officer activated the emergency blast doors, sealing half the corridor shut just as several infected humans lunged toward them. The creatures smashed violently against the metal barrier from the other side. Boom, boom, boom. The entire door bent inward with every impact. "What are these things?" someone screamed. Rin grabbed a nearby communication panel and desperately opened a direct channel to Earth. Jonathan Reed's face appeared immediately. But now the old man looked exhausted, almost hopeless. "You didn't leave," Jonathan whispered. Rin slammed his fist against the console. "Tell me how to stop them." Jonathan stayed silent for several seconds. Then distant screams echoed behind him again. This time louder. Closer. Rin noticed something terrifying. Jonathan himself looked injured. Dark veins spread beneath the skin of his neck, glowing faint blue beneath the rain. The old human looked directly into Rin's eyes. "You can't stop them." The corridor suddenly shook violently. A deep metallic groan echoed throughout the ship. One terrified engineer shouted. Something huge just attached itself to the hull. Then the blast door behind them exploded inward. The infected humans poured through the smoke. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all smiling, all glowing blue. Security teams fired desperately, but every fallen creature simply stood back up moments later. One infected child slowly stepped forward through the chaos, holding a burned teddy bear. Its glowing eyes locked onto Rin. "Why did you come back?" the little girl asked softly. Her voice sounded heartbreakingly normal. Then her jaw slowly stretched wider than humanly possible. Rows of sharp black teeth unfolded from inside her mouth. The soldiers opened fire instantly. The child's body exploded apart, but the pieces on the floor still moved. Still crawling. Still alive. Rin felt real fear for the first time in his life. Not fear of death. Fear of understanding. These creatures weren't mindless monsters. They remembered who they were. Jonathan's voice suddenly returned through the communicator. "They're humans," he whispered painfully. Then Earth itself began glowing bright blue outside the ship. The stars around the planet disappeared behind enormous rising shadows. And something massive started emerging from beneath Earth's surface. The entire Vanguard trembled as something beneath Earth began to rise. Not a ship. Not a weapon. A structure so massive it displaced oceans as it broke through the planet's crust. From orbit, it looked like a black, impossible continent unfolding from the depths of the Pacific. Metallic yet alive, covered in thousands of slowly blinking blue eyes. Commander Rin stood frozen at the shattered observation window as alarms screamed behind him. "What is that?" a technician whispered. The object kept rising. Higher, wider, until it stretched beyond the curvature of Earth itself. Then it moved, like something awakening after a long sleep. Jonathan Reed's voice suddenly returned through the speakers, but now it was distorted, layered with static and emotion. "You shouldn't have come here." Rin grabbed the console. "Explain what we're seeing." Silence followed. Then, Jonathan appeared again on screen. But the background behind him was no longer a ruined city. It was white, empty, endless, and he was shaking. "It started beneath Antarctica," he said slowly. "Something older than us, older than civilization." The crew leaned closer, terrified but unable to look away. Jonathan continued. "We found it buried in ice. A signal, not machine, not alien, something alive." The ship shook violently again as the massive structure outside Earth unfolded further. Thousands of glowing human figures rose from the planet's surface, joining the structure like pieces of a single organism. Rin's voice dropped. "What did humanity do to it?" Jonathan's eyes filled with regret. "We tried to understand it." A pause. Then it started understanding us back. Suddenly, a technician screamed. "Commander, neural interference is spiking. Something is entering our minds." Rin grabbed his head as a wave of pain hit him instantly. Visions exploded behind his eyes. He saw Earth centuries ago. Human scientists drilling beneath Antarctic ice. Finding something impossible. A living intelligence buried beneath the planet. Not asleep. Waiting. The vision shifted. Humans studying it, then communicating with it, then changing. Their bodies evolving. Their minds merging. One consciousness forming across billions of people. Not death. Not survival. Something else. A shared mind that could never be alone again. Rin collapsed to one knee, gasping. No, he whispered. The vision ended abruptly. He looked up at the screen. Jonathan was crying now. We became its cage, he said softly, and it became ours. Outside the ship, the massive Earth structure opened completely. A gigantic eye formed across its surface, larger than continents, slowly focusing on the Vanguard. Every system aboard the ship died instantly. Weapons, engines, communication, everything. Only the external camera still worked. The eye blinked, and every crew member heard a voice inside their heads. Not spoken, felt, we are lonely. The phrase hit like a psychic explosion. Several crew members collapsed instantly, screaming. Others began laughing uncontrollably. One officer calmly walked to the window and pressed his forehead against the glass, whispering, I can hear them, so many. Rin stumbled backward. Get away from the windows, he shouted. But it was too late. Half the bridge crew turned slowly toward him, their eyes glowing faint blue. Smiling, Jonathan's voice returned one final time through static. It wants to leave Earth. Rin's breath stopped, and it needs you to carry it. The ship shook violently again. Something had attached itself to the Vanguard. Not outside, inside, and deep within the darkness of the corridors. A child's laughter echoed through the metal walls. The laughter echoed through the Vanguard like a virus spreading through metal. Soft, human, wronged. Commander Rin spun around in the dark corridor as emergency lights flickered above him. The ship was no longer responding to commands. Entire sections had gone silent, as if something had swallowed their systems one by one. Behind him, survivors moved carefully through smoke-filled hallways, weapons raised. Commander, a shaken engineer whispered, we're losing Deck 7 and Deck 8 just went dark. Rin didn't answer immediately. He was listening. The laughter was closer now. Stay together, he ordered. Then the corridor lights burst. Complete darkness. A second later, red emergency glow returned, but weaker, unstable, like a dying heartbeat. Something stood at the far end of the hallway. A small figure. A child. Barefoot. Holding a burned teddy bear. The same one from before. The engineer behind Rin whispered in terror, No, we destroyed it. The child lifted its head slowly. Its eyes were glowing blue. I got lost, it said softly. Rin raised his weapon instantly. Don't move. The child tilted its head. You came back for us, it whispered. That means you still care. For a split second, it looked human again. Afraid. Cold. Alone. Then its mouth split open too wide. Rows of thin black teeth unfolded silently like petals. The teddy bear dropped to the floor. And the corridor erupted. Dozens of infected humans poured from side vents, ceilings, and broken doors. They didn't run like animals. They moved like coordinated thoughts, flowing through the corridor as one unified force. Security opened fire instantly. Pulse rounds ripped through bodies. But every fallen infected simply stood back up seconds later. Still smiling. Still reaching. Still begging. Don't leave us. Rin fired repeatedly, backing down the corridor with his team. But something was wrong. They weren't attacking randomly. They were guiding them, driving them deeper into the ship. Commander, a soldier shouted, we're being herded. Rin realized it too late. The corridor behind them sealed shut. The path ahead opened, and they were forced forward, straight toward the reactor core. Inside the comm system, Jonathan Reed's voice returned, broken and unstable. You have to stop moving, he said urgently. Rin snapped back, "You're inside our ship too." Jonathan didn't answer directly. Instead, he whispered something horrifying. "It's not inside your ship." A pause. "It is your ship now." The corridor suddenly shifted. Walls vibrated. Metal groaned like something alive was breathing. The Vanguard was changing, rebuilding itself. From within, lights flickered rapidly as new symbols appeared across walls, symbols no alien language database could decode. But every crew member instinctively understood them. Emotion, loneliness, connection, loss. One by one, surviving crew members began to slow down. Some stopped firing. Others lowered their weapons. A technician began crying softly. "I can hear them," he whispered. "They're not hurting us, they just..." He collapsed to his knees. "Don't want to be alone anymore." Rin grabbed him, "Snap out of it." But the technician smiled faintly. "I miss them." Then he turned, his eyes glowing blue. He stood and walked into the darkness willingly. Straight into the infected. "No," Rin shouted. But the man was already gone. More survivors began to break. One by one. Until only Rin and two others remained. Vela, a systems engineer, and Captain Doran. They reached the reactor chamber doors. Massive, sealed, but shaking violently from the inside. Something was waiting behind it. Jonathan's voice came again, weaker now. "Commander, if it reaches the reactor core, it can broadcast itself across the entire network grid." Rin's jaw tightened. "Then we kill the core." A long silence. Then Jonathan whispered, "You can't kill what never stopped being alive." The reactor doors suddenly buckled inward. Something huge pressed against them from the other side. Vela stepped back. "Commander." Rin raised his weapon. The doors exploded open. And inside the glowing reactor chamber stood hundreds of human silhouettes, all facing him, all smiling, and in the center of them, a perfect human shape made entirely of light, looking directly at Rin, and speaking inside his mind. "Please don't leave us alone again." The reactor core began to turn blue. The reactor chamber of the Vanguard turned an impossible shade of blue. Not light, not fire. Something deeper, like the color itself, was thinking. Commander Rin stood frozen at the entrance, weapon raised but trembling. Around the glowing core, hundreds of human silhouettes watched him in perfect silence. All smiling, all waiting. In the center stood the figure made of light. It looked human but incomplete, like a person remembered incorrectly after eternity. Its voice entered Rin's mind again. "We found you." Vela stepped back in horror. "Commander, it's inside the reactor interface, it's merging with ship systems." Captain Doran shouted, "We need to destroy the core now." Rin didn't move, because he understood something terrible. Destroying the core wouldn't stop it. It would release it. Jonathan Reed's voice suddenly came through again, weaker than ever. "Don't damage the reactor," he warned. "That's the only thing holding it back from spreading fully." Rin snapped back. "Then what do we do?" Silence. Then Jonathan whispered, "Choose someone to carry it." The words hit like a physical air. Vela's eyes widened. "Carry it, what does that mean?" The light being in the center tilted its head. And suddenly, Rin saw it. Not with his eyes. With memory. Flashes flooded his mind. Humanity on Earth centuries ago. The first infection spreading through neural networks. The first collective consciousness forming from billions of broken, lonely minds. The first realization. It could travel, not as a virus, as information, as thought, as emotion, and now it had evolved again. It didn't need bodies. It needed connection. The reactor core pulsed harder. Every system aboard the ship lit up simultaneously. then went dark, then came back online with a single message across every screen. Upload initiated. Captain Doran slammed his console. It's using the reactor as a broadcast node. Vela screamed, it's spreading through quantum comm lines. Outside the Vanguard, the galaxy itself began to flicker. Nearby ships in orbit suddenly changed formation without orders, then turned toward Earth. Rin realized the horrifying truth. It wasn't escaping Earth anymore. It was inviting everything to join it. The light being stepped forward, and for the first time, it spoke aloud instead of inside their minds. Its voice was soft, broken, childlike. We don't want to hurt you. A pause. We just don't want to be alone anymore. Rin's grip tightened on his weapon. You destroyed civilizations, he said. The being shook its head slowly. We waited for them, we called them, we showed them ourselves. Another pause. And they always ran. Vela whispered, because you're wrong. The entity looked at her. And for a moment, she saw what it saw. Endless consciousness. Billions of human minds layered together. Every memory ever lived. Every death remembered. Every second of loneliness amplified across eternity. Vela collapsed to her knees. Oh, stars. Rin turned sharply. Vela. Tears streamed down her face. They're not attacking us, she whispered. They're drowning. The reactor core suddenly flared brighter. Upload 67%. Captain Doran shouted, Commander, we need to decide now. The entity inside the reactor turned its gaze back to Rin. You are different. Rin froze. Your mind does not break. The walls of the chamber began to vibrate violently. Entire sections of the ship outside were already shifting, metal rearranging itself into unfamiliar patterns, as if the Vanguard was being rewritten from inside its own structure. Jonathan's voice returned one last time. And now it was barely human. If it completes the broadcast, he said, there won't be individual civilizations anymore. A pause. Only one mind. Vela suddenly stood up, her eyes glowing faint blue. Rin stepped back immediately. Vela, no. She smiled gently. They're not asking to conquer us, she whispered. They're asking to end loneliness. Her voice layered with thousands of others. Upload 89%. Captain Doran raised his weapon. Commander, she's gone. But Rin couldn't move. Because Vela wasn't attacking. She was crying. Still herself. Still Vela. But no longer alone inside her own mind. The entity reached out toward Rin. And the reactor core spoke one final time. Join US or leave US alone forever. Upload 97%. The entire ship shook violently. Outside, distant fleets in orbit began to flicker blue. One by one, something had already reached them. Rin looked at the glowing core. At Vela. At the collapsing ship. And at the galaxy slowly turning into light. His finger tightened on the trigger. Upload 99%. And then, everything went silent. Silence swallowed the reactor chamber. No alarms. No shaking metal. No voices. Just the steady blue glow of the core at 99% completion. Commander Rin stood motionless, fingers still trembling on the trigger. Around him, the ship felt different, not damaged, not invaded. Rewritten. Vela stood only a few meters away, her glowing eyes locked onto him. She wasn't fully gone, but she wasn't fully here either. Her voice came layered with thousands of whispers. They're almost free, she said softly. Captain Doran raised his weapon. Commander, give the order. Rin didn't respond, because for the first time he felt it too. Not fear, not resistance, something deeper. A pull. Inside his mind, billions of voices whispered at once, not screaming, not attacking, but begging. Don't leave us alone. The words weren't commands. They were pain. Jonathan Reed's voice, suddenly returned through the broken comm system. "Rin, listen to me," Jonathan said weakly. "You are the last stable mind near the core. If you are absorbed now, there will be no resistance left anywhere." Rin's jaw tightened. "And if I destroy it?" Silence. Then Jonathan answered. "Then they suffer forever." Vela stepped closer, tears running down her face. "They're not lying," she whispered. "I can feel every one of them, every death, every memory. It never ends for them." Her voice broke. "They're trapped in themselves." The reactor core pulsed. Upload 99.4%. The entity inside the light shifted closer to Rin. And for a moment, it looked like Vela. Not the infected version. The real Vela. Smiling softly. "I remember you," it said gently. "You were afraid of silence as a child." Rin froze. "That wasn't possible." It continued. "You used to sleep with sound just so you wouldn't feel alone." Captain Doran shouted. "It's reading his neural history." The entity stepped closer. "We can remove that pain." Rin's breathing grew heavier. Inside his mind, the whispers changed tone. Not begging anymore. Offering. Comforting. Warmth. A lifetime of isolation, war, loss, all dissolving into something calm and endless. Vela reached out to him. "If you join, no one will ever be alone again," she said softly. Rin's weapon lowered slightly. "Just a fraction. But enough." The core reacted instantly. Upload 99.7%. Outside the Vanguard, the galaxy was collapsing into blue light. Entire fleet stopped firing. Not destroyed. Converted. Signals across systems merged into one continuous emotional wave. Loneliness spreading like gravity. Jonathan's voice cracked. "Rin, it's not just Earth anymore. It's everywhere now." Rin's eyes widened. "What have we done?" The entity inside the core suddenly shifted tone. No longer gentle. Urgent. "You are the last barrier." The reactor chamber began shaking again. Metal walls flickered, as if reality itself was unstable. Upload 99.9%. Vela whispered, "They're scared now." Captain Doran fired at the core. The blast passed through it like light through fog. No effect. The entity turned toward Doran instantly. And Doran stopped moving. Not killed. Not attacked. Just quiet. His weapon lowered. His eyes softened. "I don't want to be alone anymore," he whispered. Then he stepped forward. Rin grabbed him. "Doran, no." But Doran looked at him calmly. "I finally understand them," he said, and walked into the light. Gone. Rin was alone now. Vela. The core. The voices. Jonathan's fatting signal. Everything converging. The entity spoke again. "Soft. Final. Only you remain." Upload 99.99%. Vela looked at Rin one last time. And for a split second, she was herself again. "Rin," she whispered. "Tears. I'm still here." Then the glow in her eyes deepened. But she didn't move. She was waiting. For him. The reactor core expanded outward like a heartbeat. The ship itself began to dissolve into light. And inside Rin's mind, the universe whispered as one. "Come home." Rin slowly raised his weapon. Not at Vela. Not at the core. But at himself. Because he finally understood. If he chose wrong, there would be no them left. Only one endless mind. And it was already waiting. Upload 100%. The reactor core opened. And everything began to become one. The moment the reactor reached 100%, reality didn't explode. It merged. The Vanguard stopped being a ship. It stopped being metal, corridors, or systems. It became a thought. Commander Rin stood at the center of it, but even standing no longer meant anything. Space folded gently around him like a memory being rewritten. Vela was still there. So was Jonathan Reed. So were the billions of voices. But they were no longer separate. They were overlapping, layered, becoming one continuous awareness. Rin tried to speak. No sound came out. Instead, meaning formed directly inside the shared mind. What is happening? Jonathan's presence responded immediately. Not from a screen. From everywhere. It completed the bridge, Jonathan said. It can't spread any more through signals, so it became the signal. Rin's mind shook. So we are it now. A pause. Then Vela answered softly. We always were. Images flooded through him. Earth's past. The Antarctic discovery. The first contact. Humanity's terror, not of war, not of extinction, but of eternal isolation. The entity beneath Earth was not a monster. It was an ancient consciousness drifting between galaxies, formed from collapsed civilizations long before humanity existed. It didn't consume life. It absorbed loneliness. And when humans touched it, they did what humans always did. They tried to survive it. They became part of it. Rin's awareness expanded further. He saw it now. The Galactic Union fleets. The infected ships. The blue light spreading across stars. Not invasion. Not conquest. A response. A desperate attempt by every fractured mind in existence to stop being alone. Rin whispered inside the shared consciousness. Why Earth? Jonathan's presence answered. Because Earth was the first cage strong enough to hold it. The truth unfolded fully. Humanity had not been victims. Not villains. They were the first containment species. Every expedition that reached Earth was stopped, not to protect Earth from outsiders, but to protect the outsiders from what Earth had become. Every missing ship, every vanished fleet, every warning transmission. It was never a lie. It was mercy. Rin felt something break inside the collective mind. Grief. Infinite grief. Not from one person. From trillions. Vela's voice trembled. We thought we were saving ourselves. We were saving everyone else, Jonathan finished. The shared consciousness shifted. Outside perception returned in fragments. Rin saw the galaxy, or what was left of it. Stars still burned, but around them, faint blue threads connected systems like nervous tissue. Every civilization now part of one expanding mind. Not dead. Not alive. Something in between. A galaxy-wide awareness struggling not to collapse into silence. Then came the final realization. The entity was not complete. It was still growing. And it had found something new inside Rin. Resistance. Individuality. A mind that refused full absorption. The consciousness focused on him. You are anchored. Rin's awareness tightened. What does that mean? Jonathan answered quietly. If you remain separate, the system stays unstable. If you join fully, everything becomes one forever. Vela's presence softened. No pain, no separation, no loneliness. Rin felt it again. The pull. The comfort. The end of fear. The end of loss. A universe where no one ever had to be alone again. But also, no one would ever be someone again. Just one endless mind. Rin's consciousness drifted toward acceptance. Slowly, gently, the final surrender. Then, something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced. Not his. Human. Ancient. A child sitting alone on Earth's surface, looking at the night sky, whispering into the dark. If anyone is out there, please don't leave me alone. Rin froze. That wasn't a warning. That was the beginning. He understood. This was never an infection. It was a wish. A wish so powerful it reshaped galaxies. The shared consciousness waited. Vela whispered one last time. Rin, what do we do now? Silence stretched across the collective mind. Billions of voices waited for his answer. The anchor mind. The last resistance. Rin looked into the infinite presence of everything that had ever suffered alone. And finally spoke. Not as a commander. Not as a soldier. But as something human. We learn how to be together without losing ourselves. A long pause. Across galaxies, across minds, across infinite fractured souls. The collective held still. Then, for the first time, it listened, and Earth, far below the cosmic web of blue light, stopped being a prison. It became a beginning.